Closer Look continues here on 90.1 WABE. From Atlanta, I'm Rose Scott. As we continue our look at where we are today, 2 years after the World Health Organization declared the COVID-19 outbreak a pandemic, we need to acknowledge the tremendous loss of life caused by this virus. The numbers, we know, are sobering. Earlier this week, the global death toll crossed the 6 million mark, and that figure, it continues to grow. Here in the U.S., the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reveals more than 957,000 Americans have lost their lives. In Georgia, the numbers are a little bit over 30,000. Numbers that are large and hard to comprehend, we know, even though behind each one is years of a lived experience and untold ranks of friends and family members experiencing loss. Well, Leslie Murphy is trying to help people process all of that. She's an artist who lives in Lilburn, Georgia, and has been creating memorial portraits of people lost to COVID-19. And these aren't ordinary pictures. They are made entirely of text, and they're inspired by the words of friends and family members. Leslie joins me now. I'm also joined by Doyle. She's a poet who's currently a visiting professor and writer in residence at Washington and Jefferson College in Western Pennsylvania. You'll hear why she's joining us in just a moment. Thank you both for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Rose. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you.
Caitlin, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell our listeners about Sean?
Yes. My dad, Sean Doyle, was unfortunately someone who passed due to the pandemic, and he was really just a remarkable person in every way. He came over from Ireland in his 20s, and he fought in Korea, and then he moved to New York City. And when he was in New York, he started a bar called the White Horse Inn, which became a really popular hotspot for artists and writers. And he was himself an artist and writer, and he was just dazzlingly brilliant. And this is one of the reasons why when I saw what Leslie Murphy was doing with her artwork, I was so drawn to the possibility of having my own father's portrait made, because she builds the images of the people involving words that pertain to their lives. So words that you send her from friends, family, words that describe the person's biography, that describe their personality. And that's why it was such I was so compelled to contact Leslie when I saw what she was doing with the Memorial Portrait series. She put a call out on a grief group on Facebook for people who'd lost people to COVID. And I saw the incredible work, and I just connected with it because I couldn't think of a better way to memorialize somebody like my dad, who was so into the arts and literature, than with a portrait made out of words. So I sent along a photo of my dad and a lot of words about his life, and she made this portrait that is we treasure it so much within my family. I have it on my walls. My family has copies of it on their walls as well. It's a beautiful memorial of him, and it also helped a lot with the grieving process, because it was one of the first kind of tangible things that happened to mark him passing shortly after he passed.
And Caitlin, your father, Sean, died in January of 2021. His battle with the virus, was there a point where you all thought maybe he could overcome it, he would recover?
Yes, there were a number of moments along the way when that seemed possible and even likely. The nature of having somebody in your family hospitalized with COVID is that there are just constant ups and downs. There's constant changes that give you hope, such as their oxygen levels seeming to go up or their appetite seeming to return. And then the next day, their oxygen levels might crash again, and then you might be back in scary territory. So there was a lot of ups and downs. We all held out hope really right until the end. And he was intubated actually on my birthday on New Year's Eve. And I think that was where the full reality of it hit. And so it's a strange process because you don't get to see them at all. Of course, at that point, nobody was being allowed to visit. This was before vaccines. So you're seeing them however you can, in whatever spare moments that the hospital staff, who are working incredibly hard and overworked, can find moments to Zoom with him on a tablet they have. We were able to see him in short flashes. Some of the times he could barely talk because he would be getting oxygen. So it is a very hard way to lose someone because of that lack of ability to be there in person.
Leslie, this is where we bring you into the story, and I want to take a step back. How did you come to do this kind of work in the first place?
I started making these portraits in earnest in 2017 as I was mourning the loss of my own father. He had passed away as a result of complications from diabetes, and I was working on a memorial word portrait of him to kind of process that loss and just kind of pouring everything I wanted to say both to him and about losing him into the work. And as I was working on his portrait, news of the Las Vegas shooting broke, and I was just immediately struck by how many people were just suddenly going through the exact same gut-wrenching pain of losing a loved one that I was going through. And I decided then that I would start reaching out to people who had lost loved ones to gun violence to start offering to make memorial word portraits for them. And when COVID hit, just after months of watching the death toll climb and just feeling so helpless and anxious about all of it, I just really wanted to do something. So I decided to start reaching out to people who had lost loved ones to COVID. And I wanted to bring the humanity back to the conversation about loss, particularly when it's something like COVID deaths or gun violence, where it's just so huge and unrelenting. It just almost feels like this white noise of tragedy. So I really just wanted to call attention to the fact that these are actual people. It's not just numbers, real people.
And where did you look to seek to even make this offer? I heard Caitlin mention, the group, online group. Is that where you started?
Yeah, I was on Facebook and I started looking for grief support groups, and I contacted one of the group's admins and asked if I could, reach out to people who might want to have portraits made for a series of artwork that I wanted to start. And I was immediately overwhelmed by how many people wanted to have a portrait made. And right now I'm on my 28th COVID portrait, so I'm still doing them. And I just wanted to give back. I know how hard it is to go through that loss, and also how helpful art making can be in processing loss. So I just wanted to share that with other people.
I have to tell you, these are absolutely stunning, and they tell a story. Caitlin, when you saw Sean's portrait for the first time?
I was blown away I had so many different reactions. I was blown away by the level of skill in it, how well done it is, how much it looks exactly like him, and how the entire thing is built out of words. How if you stand away from it a fair enough distance, you can't necessarily tell. And then when you walk up, you see all the words. And I spent a lot of time reading them all. And it kind of connected me to what it was like writing them all when I sent them Leslie's way. And so I immediately knew when I saw it that this was something that honored him in remarkable ways because it was so well done and because it was so deeply personalized to him. And it actually, in the background of the portrait that is made out of words about him, there's also words that he wrote in his own handwriting that I sent along to Leslie. So she incorporated that into the portrait. So really his very essence and personality are in the portrait, radiating out, because you even have his handwriting in the background. So it's a remarkable thing that she made from an artistic point of view. And then the level of personal meaning to it is really hard to even put into words.
Caitlin, there is perhaps no exact substitute for your father, for Sean, obviously. But is there some sense of processing through the grieving process, whatever that is? Is there anything cathartic about having this memorial, this portrait of your dad for you?
It really is. This is partially because one of the things that happens when you lose someone in a way like this is that you're at sea as to figure out what words could do them justice, how to remember them in such a way that you're doing them justice. And so when this, with the incredible amount of personal attention and detail to who he was and to what his life was, and the words that pertain to his life came into my view when she had finished it, my breath was just knocked out of me, because it felt like, wow, this was something that had allowed me to do justice to him in remembering him, because of how well done it is and because of the content of it. So that had a lot of meaning for me, because especially with a COVID death, without the kind of closure that you can have, say, through memorial ceremony happening soon after. We weren't able to do one soon after. We had to wait a really long time before we were able to do one. And I had Leslie's portrait long before there was our ability to do a memorial ceremony. So it felt like I was having a way to memorialize him while we still couldn't have one. And in fact, when we did have the memorial for him, we blew up the picture that Leslie made, and it was prominent at the memorial. Everybody just couldn't believe it when they saw it. And so, yes, it was very cathartic in that sense. And also just knowing that it was something he would have loved so much matters a lot.
And finally, Leslie, as we wrap up, I'll give you the last word on this. You heard what Caitlin said, the reaction. I imagine you received a lot of the same reaction from so many people. And what this means for you as an artist.
Well, as an artist, it feels good to know that I'm making something for someone that's truly meaningful, and it feels really fulfilling to try to help honor someone's memory who's passed. And kind of hard to wrap my head around, but it fills my cup, if that makes any sense. It feels good to do nice things for people, and it's also kind of a way to honor my own parents and their memories by making work that reflects the values that they raised me with. And it feels good to know I'm setting a good example for my kids. And the thank you emails that I've gotten from some of these people have literally brought me to tears. And it's just been a very moving experience for me as an artist and just as a person.
How much longer do you think you can or want to continue to do these?
Well, I still have probably about 15 people who have been promised portraits. So I'm definitely going to finish up at least those. And then I might move on to something else. I might keep it going. But right now I'm not going to take any more requests just so I can just finish what's on my plate and just kind of reassess whether or not I want to continue or move on to something else.
Leslie Murphy is a local artist who's been memorializing people lost to COVID-19 through amazing work with these portraits. Caitlin Doyle lost her father, Sean, to COVID-19 in early 2021. He's one of the people featured in Leslie's work. We'll have a link, Leslie, to your wonderful work on our website. Thank you both for taking time. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Rose.